Hello, music multiverse listeners. Welcome to Beyond Your Radio. Welcome back to Panelists Favorite Show. Tonight, this is part 2 of a 3-part series where we're discussing our favorite progressive albums. But let me explain a bit about that. There's no kind of progressive genre labeled on this show. It's anything goes. You can argue about this genre till the cows come home. How the panelists go about this is completely up to them. Now, only Jeff and Sue and myself were on the last show, and apparently we're back again. So we've already gotten the familiars, the moving pictures, the Queensryche, the Yes, and of course I went to obscure areas. But so go back and check those out. The link will be in the description. So now we're on to the second show, and let's just see what albums we get. Progressive music generally refers to music that pushes boundaries, experiments with unconventional structure, and incorporates usually diverse influences, often characterized by complex arrangements, extended instrumental sections, and thematic or conceptual albums. But it does not have to have keyboards, although that could be quintessentially where it all started. That's, every other people's opinion that the keyboard has to be in it, but I don't believe that. It certainly doesn't have to be rock, and it can be jazz, and it can be folk, and it could be electronica. But here we go: progressive metal, progressive rock, proto prog, art rock, jazz fusion, progressive folk, progressive electronic, space rock, avant-garde, prog, Canterbury, experimental pop, jazz, progressive pop, reggae rock,
and progressive insurance, progressive soup.
Alphabet soup.
Whatever album is put on here tonight, it's really to open your ears a little bit, maybe mention a great album or two that maybe you've not even thought about in a while, or even given a progressive thought to. Or maybe you're just now getting your ear wet in the land of prog. Well, welcome to the party, pal. Either way, I'm glad you joined us tonight. If this is your first time here, please think about subscribing. We have all kinds of cool shows and information out there. And always leave us a comment or two. I love to get into conversations. Let's see who's joining us on the panel tonight, which I already sort of think, but I'll introduce him crazy anyway. His prog IQ is ELO, ELP, divided by SBB to the square root of 10cc. Jeff Young. If she was going to Starbucks, she would definitely order the Fripp and Eno. A very sound decision, right? Susie Q. See what I did there? Yeah.
Okay.
All right. All right. So part 2, you had some time to pick up another 5. It's just the 3 of us again. So let's start with the Susie Q.
Okay. Well, I am going to start out with Supertramp. I just went with Crime of the Century, 74, okay. 74 Prog, I guess your more traditional proggy band. I had to double check this entire night. I double checked to see if these would be fitting or not. But so this is more for me digestible than some of the others. I mean, yes, I can do Yes and Rush. The Genesis end of things, I realize, is like prog, a king of prog. But this, I almost feel it's just easier listening, maybe, and yet still fits the prog bill. So, yeah.
It has progressive pop elements. It's made for radio play. It has those catches, those hooks, elongated tracks, not tremendous, but catchy as hell. Yeah.
It's the most popular song off that.
The most popular?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like Dreamer. Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. Well, that's what I was asking.
Oh, Dreamer, like Bloody Well Right.
Oh, there you go.
Crime of the Century.
Yep.
Once you hear it, they all come back to you. But
yep.
Yeah, they got those 2 records, Were they back to back?
Mm,
Breakfast in America?
Ooh.
I don't remember off the top.
Mm,
Yeah, that's
Was it
would definitely be an album that would fit in the probably top
also?
several hundred prog albums of all time. All right, Mr. Young, what have you brought to the hateful prog definition?
I'll start with one that's like the least known as Prog, but is Prog-ish. I picked from '98, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son by Iron Maiden.
Mm.
It's inspired by the novel Seventh Son, and it's a concept album about good and evil, and it's their seventh album. Bassist Steve Harris and Bruce Dickinson, the vocalist, are massive prog rock fans, and you could even, I guess, if you remember, they actually did a cover of Jethro Tull's "Cross-Eyed Mary." It was like on one of the B-sides, one of their imports. But this is the first Maiden album to feature keyboards rather than guitar synths that they more notably used on the previous album, which was Somewhere in Time. I'm trying to think here. The Evil That Men Do, The Clairvoyant, and Can I Play With Madness are three songs off that album that they still play live today. Those are the most popular ones off the album that they would still most likely play. But then the title track is 9 minutes long. It's not as long as some of their other works, like Rhyme with the Ancient Mariner, which one thing that's notable throughout all their albums is they have a lot of songs or tracks that are about history or literature, which I find pretty cool. But it's a good album. I was surprised the first time I listened to it to hear the synth and the keyboards on it, but it works. I mean, a lot of people will rate it as not one of their better albums, but I don't know of any Iron Maiden fan that like would trash it. Maybe if you want to compare it to some of their other works, they might, but it's still an album I listen to. It's good.
All right. No, Iron Maiden.
And of course, the art is amazing.
Yeah, their art is progressive enough to say, kind of in the competition with Yes albums and that kind of stuff. Okay, so I'm going to do a tie since there's only three of us, because not enough new stuff gets in mentions for these in the prog world, in modern prog. So I'm gonna go with the is it going to be the only one? This is 2013, and the other one is from 1997. So in 2013, a band called Haken did an album called The Mountain, and this is among the very best in the modern progressive metal environment, although it is the band's ability to mix in these beautiful melodies and pop structures into music that is intellectually stimulating and unpredictable that gives the band its real appeal. Now, occasionally, they get noted as Dream Theater-like. I don't feel that way, because Dream Theater kind of has this signature of fear. But we all know it's a fun kind of fear. You don't feel scared at all. Haken is a serious instrument.
Dream a la Nightmare.
Yes, right? So they kind of vacillate easily between funky weirdness and metal, which is really, really challenging to accomplish in some cases, but they do a fantastic job of it. And in the modern era, I do believe they are in the top 3 bands doing prog today in that element. Going back a few years to 1997, at nearly the turn of the century, there's a band called Discipline, and I've mentioned them on this channel before. The album is Unfolded Like Staircase. This is just cinematic prog with dynamic modern structures to it. It's just an album I can't live without. When I play it at least 3 times a year, and it was brought to my ear by another channel and another individual who who likes his prog a bit dark, and just so well done. A lot of instrumentation on it, and it's one of my favorites in the modern era of prog. Now, there's going to be other albums I talk about in today's show that they're not going to be in the same wheelhouses of prog that people think of, and I'm trying to challenge that tonight because I want people to understand that the definition of the progressive music is broad, very broad scope. So don't narrow yourselves. And that's kind of what we're doing here. That's why it says progressive albums, not progressive rock, not progressive pop. We're just talking about it all in general. There's a broad scope of music and bands you could have chosen for this and albums. So I was really hoping more of the panel would join because it was free. It wasn't structured tightly. But, anyway, those are my ties at my number. I guess really what I'm calling it would be my number 11. Is it number 11? No, what is it? If I got 5 left, so 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, my number
10.
My number 10. Yeah, thanks for the math. Sue.
I'd use my fingers.
Oh.
Somebody get that man a calculator.
Yes. Let me get my abacus. Sue, you're next.
All right, so I guess I'm gonna follow Jeff's theme of prog-ish and your broader theme. So you might disagree, and that's okay. But again, I don't like to just look at a list and pick something because it's there and it says it is what it is. I want to try to pick an album that I actually do listen to, and maybe it has, themes of what we're talking about. So I chose Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness.
Not bad at all.
Right? It's ranked more like alt rock, obviously, but there is prog, I think, within it. It's described, obviously, well, everybody knows it's mixes, it's orchestral ballads,
Crazy video.
All of it. And I was reading even they used there's keyboards, synthesizers. I don't know for sure, but salt shakers and scissors.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Experimental and obviously lyrically, they just run with it, and so I would say
a double album, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's proggy.
Oh yeah, it's definitely proggy. It's
proggish.
Yeah, I would definitely say that they come into that a long time before even that album and how they deliver certain things. But that album definitely moved things up a tremendous notch. They're one of those bands that can shoegaze, prog, move themselves all around the genres. Alternative, grunge.
Yep.
Nice. Great pick. Mr. Young.
I'm just going to get this out of the way. I can't remember if somebody said it last week, but I'm just picking Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd, 73, their 8th album. The album was developed during their live performances in the previous tour. But, it's a concept album that focuses on, they said, pressures by their band during their lifestyle and dealing with mental health problems from a former band member, Sid Barrett's passing. But, it's a legendary album. There's not much to say about it that people don't already know. So I just feel like I had to pick that album. Just, that was an album that I first heard the entire front to back in school in music class in like 7th or 8th grade.
Who was the teacher? Dr.
O'Gorick. At North Park.
Yeah, he played a lot of albums.
Yeah, well, I remember he had a synthesizer in class that he showed us. Mm-hmm. That's the first time I ever physically saw a synthesizer and keyboard. Mm-hmm. And I remember the one year, I had him a couple years in a row. But the first semester was all about the Beatles. The second semester was all about Pink Floyd. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
that album is probably like on everybody's list, right? It's
Easily.
it's
It's probably more.
essentially one of the greatest
ranked number one
progressive
more than
albums.
any other one too.
Yeah, and it's rightfully so. Rightfully so. It's really good from start to finish.
What's funny though is like I remember hearing it for the first time. My thoughts were more like, oh, this is kind of psychedelic, kind of just rock, straight ahead rock. But you know, progressive would never enter my vocabulary at that time. You know,
Right. Mhm.
All right, so I am going to pull an album out of 1972, and oh, when you think of 1972, you're generally into that psychedelic prog, maybe the start of heavy metal. But then there's this band that you're not thinking space rock. And this band, I don't know if they were the ones that started. I wouldn't know. But without bands like this, there's no Monster Magnet. There's no. I'm trying to think of like other space-ridden bands that do this stuff, and they do it well. But this is Khan, Khan, and it's Space Shanty.
Wow.
Fantastic looking cover too. This was made between December of '71 to March of '72.
is the band name based off the Star Trek character?
I'm not sure. I didn't really know if that was the case or not. I mean, you're talking about '72. I don't know. That's.
I mean, it's a novice question that I could ask.
Yeah, I'm
not
right. Sure. Considering the year of it, I don't know. It is the only album by this band, and Steve Hillage's first solo album kind of got in the way, and all kinds of stuff that was going on at the time. So, it's just immersive, and it sounds as rich and thick and spaced out and as it would as if it was recorded today. In some cases, when you see it, and if you didn't know what I'm telling you right today, you might even think it might be a band from the late '80s, early '90s, or into the '90s. It doesn't suffer from any of that. Some people have talked about it being this like Blade Runner-y kind of thing. And I think that was like Steve Hillage when he was talking about the production of the album and what they were thinking about. But it's a dynamic album. I want to say it's got to be like 50 minutes long, I think.
Wow.
Somewhere around there. But it was Steve Hillage was in the band, Nick Greenwood, Dave Stewart, and 1972. So if you don't know it, check it out. I'm sure there's a lot of prog people that do know it. I do not have it in my collection. It is hard to. I mean, it's expensive to me what the price is, and I'm trying to find it. It's like one of those coveted things I'm trying to find. I try not to spend $20-some on a CD. It's but it does have that psychedelic side even to it, and it's got a lot going on. It's deep. It's cool. Really cool. All right, back to Soup.
Okay, well, I'm gonna lob this one out there, and you can tell me what you think. Beth Hart's War in My Mind from 2019. I know you're more into Beth Hart than I am, and Deb, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But so this one is blues and rock vocal, but it has more, from what I gather, because it has more of a cinematic feel to it. And it's a little bit more introspective and orchestral, that it might have some proggy tendencies. Yay or nay, say you.
You'd have a fight. The one thing about it is no one ever talks about prog vocal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And really, some of that is a necessity, right? Like the Geddy Lees, the Steve Hillage we just talked about, obviously Pink Floyd. But when Beth Hart's vocal is a hard disguise, right? It's blues. She is a blues
I think the vocal is more about the lyrics than the actual delivery.
Right, but how can it be delivered now in that record? If I remember correctly, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of cinematic introspection, and the blues is sort of taking it. This blues is sort of holding a position, but the rest of the album is working toward experimental. And it's interesting because with a vocal like hers, what could you do? Could you create a sound? Could you move that scale or that bar? And I'd have to think about that album again. It was definitely one of those that was not like the rest, not. But and again, she had records in her early career that were more alternative than they were blues. So she's been around in that vein and been able to shift things. So yeah, it's a good discussion. And I'm trying to. Do you have like what was played on that? What instruments?
No, I don't. I'll look them up while you continue on a moment.
I don't know if I had that record.
I don't think there was anything that was crazy out there, but
I know there was orchestral arrangement.
Yeah.
Along with it. I mean, and she's kind of got that side from being with Joe Bonamassa, because Joe has a tendency to bring in those kind of elements to his, but on more of a big band side. And this is true. She didn't go the big band route, but she's done that with him. So yeah, that's an interesting record. We'll have to go back at that.
Yeah.
Those are people you'd like to see them try different things, and if that's a progressive movement for her, it is. There's no question about it. But is it as progressive as some other females, which might get mentioned in the next few minutes? Mr. Young.
I picked an album that I don't know if I've ever listened to on CD. I've only maybe ever listened to it on cassette tape. It's from 1988. And, a lot of people know of the big four metal bands. You got your Slayer, Metallica, Anthrax, Megadeth. But there's also consideration for the big three prog metal bands. So you got your Queensryche, you got your what's her name that you just mentioned a minute ago.
I just mentioned them, and
they just came out with an album this year.
Dream Theater.
Dream Theater, and this band, Fate's Warning.
Yes.
The album is No Exit. It's their fourth album from Metal Blade Records. I only say that because I think it's a cool name. But it's their first album with the singer that would kind of remain their singer for most of their albums. It is considered to this day, I think, really maybe their best album. It might be their second best, but I think a lot of people think it's their best just because of one particular song. It's a 23-minute track called The Ivory Gates of Dreams, and it has like 8 parts to it. Innocence, Cold Days, Daylight Dreamers, Quietus, Ivory Tower, Whispers in the Wind, Acquiescence, and Retrospect. And I just remember the time listening to going, wow, they have a 20-minute freaking song. It's like, even though it's in parts, but I think even YouTube splits it up when you go look for it. but otherwise, I think Awaken the Guardian might be the one album that people like more than that, but it's similar to some of their previous albums. I don't know all their albums. I think they have like 13 albums. I don't think they basically retired. I don't think they tour anymore, but definitely a lot of, I guess you'd say, similar, guitar structures to the other two. Somewhat not complicated, but I guess just I don't know if that's the right word for this. It's not intricate, but it's just there's a lot to it. Complicated, I guess, is the best word. But the lyrics are sometimes, if you're not used to this type of metal, it's little tough to take. It's very similar to Dream Theater, but maybe even just a little more high pitched sometimes, a little more high voice. But good guitar, good heavy rhythm guitar, good drumming. You know, if you're not if this is not your speed, I can see how some of the songs might all kind of blend together and sound the same. But for me at the time, it was what I was into. And again, I haven't listened to it in forever. I just listened to it recently just because I wanted to pick the album, and I just forgot how it was, how good it was. I don't know, if some of those older '80s albums, still have the same lasting power. Like some of the older '80s movies, they don't quite hold up, technically, but if you like Dream Theater, then this is probably worth a listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fates Warning is huge in that. It's a band that, with their immenseness of catalog, kind of gets forgotten.
I mean, I've met a few people in my life that even know who they are.
It's true. All right, so I am gonna go into an artist who might be one of the most dynamic female artists of all time. I know that could be contested among the Kate Bushes of the world and
Judy Garland.
This album is from 2001, back in August. Her name is Bjork. She's the Sting of naming nomenclature, I guess you say. She composed the entire album in small arrangements that are more stripped electronica than anything. She has this strong sense of the pop that she hears, and it is amazing to me that radio followed this album. It is shocking to me that it got airplay. It's shocking to me that that you can create something of this nature back in that era, that time frame, and literally after she had done so many other records, bring this out. And because remember, electronica of this nature kind of gets doo-dooed on quite often because they don't like how clicky it is, or like the craft works of the world. But this is seamless strings, and everything about it is based on minimalistic strings, from harp to celesta. There's music boxes of sorts. She's got and how she comes up with lyrics within this puts her in a Peter Gabriel kind of sense, female wise. How to craft these from pagan poetry and hidden places and Cocoon. This is an album that was critically adored. There are perfection statements. There are, Rolling Stone saying it's timeless.
Which album is it again?
This is Vespertine. 2001. Actually, did I even mention the title? I didn't.
I don't think you did.
Right. This also moves on to this Sunday. If you want to join me, I will be talking about Matmos, who is elemental in the creation and works of this album, as my wife and I found out when she got tickets to go to Bjork in Toronto. Because
Bjork is like the name you see when they want to spell the sound effect in a comic strip.
Yes, yeah, like Squonk from Genesis. But there is, if you want, this is an album that has, for in the 2000s, probably one of the largest informational pieces about it. It is one of the best progressive albums ever made by a female, for sure, and I recommend it highly. Still to this day, it has. She goes off into areas that are just too smart for most of us, and which can be problematic. But this album is very accessible, and there's great players on there, composers and stuff that have joined in this too. There's a long list.
She should add cliff notes to her album. That'd be great.
Yeah, there are some of those, like Biophilia. Oh, stop! I can't. You lost me. Music as a chemical formula. Yikes! Stop. Anyway, back to Sue.
Yes, and so here's another one where maybe you're gonna disagree. I don't know, but I'm just putting it out there. I'm going with the Rolling Stones' Exile on Main Street. So this is another one where it's not traditional prog. However, it's more layered. It's textured. They did use organ. They had harmonica, sax, and they blended them. So according to some people, it could be considered prog-ish, blues, gospel, country, all mixed. So what do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Beatles' White Album gets mentioned in there. So do other Beatles albums for that progressive nature of it all. Then, and at that point in the year that that album was made, which was 72, they were incorporating things, and the sound of it is amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I didn't look at it as prog, before this, but now I can.
I mean, think about Chicago. All right,
Yeah.
Chicago doesn't happen in that vein unless the Stones do what they did. So yeah, it's and Chicago gets mentioned in the prog environment.
Yeah.
Yep. Good pick.
I guess the one thing with the Stones that would fall short in my opinion are the lyrics really, and I guess their delivery. That feels like a stabilizer into the rock world, but
yeah. So here, this is a perfect timing for this. I was going to save it for next show, but I think it fits now. So time signature doesn't fit a prog record. These are short songs, right?
Right.
Against prog, but let's talk about one of the albums that wouldn't be considered prog, but is considered prog, and gets mentioned a lot, and that's Led Zeppelin's 4. Okay, based on technically, you could say the one song in itself is entirely prog, and that's Stairway to Heaven. That's a progressive song, bar none. That album has elements of total rock, classic rock, but it has elements of prog in it too, and that's where this thin line and genres get blurry. And I'm not a fan of like the label and it has to be here and it has to be there. And I think that's probably why some other people who are going to be mentioned in next episode maybe kind of left countries that they were in because they were sick of being labeled. I'm not trying to label things, but I love the idea of saying the Rolling Stones' Exile on Main Street has an element of prog. It's a progressive rock album. It has progressive nature. Adding organ, even like my Con record, there's organ in there that makes that happen. That space sound. That's how they decided it. You think about where they're recorded and how they're recorded and the mix of sounds. Yeah, it's very prog. And then even using a guitar to sound different gives levels of prog. The drop D chords of certain people like Tool. Yeah. Mr. Young.
I'm going to pick Frog Stomp by Silverchair. Actually, I'm sorry. I got my frog list mixed up with my prog list. I'm actually going to go with Tool. Do Fear Inoculum. But I don't have any notes on it because I didn't look it up. I thought I did the other one already. But Fear Inoculum is just a continuation of it. I mean, they still, like in the earlier days, there's more hard rock. Now it's progressive hard rock, progressive metal, however you want to say it. I guess they're kind of leading the way with that. But everything is dynamic. Everything is however long they want to make it and whatever direction they want to go. And you can play it on the radio or not. They don't care because their fans love every second of it.
Oh, yeah. It's so funny to me how those in the prog world and Andy Edwards, who I love and respect, and he doesn't like Tool. He thinks it's he knows it's prog, but he finds it a bit dull and not a, but it's expansive. It's the sounds that they come up with. You know, this is what their fifth album. Um, it this I want to say this is the longest album. Let's throw away the idea of that long track from the one album Anima that goes on forever. You know, this is a solid record from start to finish. This album like sold out in record stores. That hadn't happened in a very long time. Uh, in rock environment, in progressive environments, you know what I mean? The only person I can think of that would sold out of albums would be Taylor Swift. But Fear Inoculum, and this was not your
That was a long awaited album too. People were waiting for that.
oh my god, yeah, it was a decade, maybe right 13 years, and the packaging, this wasn't a $9 album. I think the lowest price was probably in the 20s because of all the extras that came with it and stuff. So yeah,
No one does packaging like Tool.
No, there's not many. No, I would agree with you. That's the beautiful packaging usually. Yep. Grammy Award for best rock song and best metal performance. It to me it is the Tool album. That they've grown, everyone just elevated the next. Good pick. Getting a ring in my ear. All right, I'm going to go off the reservation to folk, rock, indie, prog. The Decemberists, my Crane wife. If you don't know this album, this is something you got to go. It's almost like it's this. You're walking into that Gangs of New York kind of setting, you know. The Shankill Butchers will get you in the end. It's a very story-driven, and they did it on their latest record too. They kind of went back to the same thing, but it's catchy. It's elongated songs, but they're done in a nature of like a Canterbury style of prog, but in a folk environment, and extremely well put together in vocal and harmonies and tempo and octave changes, and no song is the same. And definitely my favorite Decemberist record. I mean, I know where they started from. We saw them live at UB. I think they managed to put on a extremely interesting show, and a progressive woman opened for them, My Brightest Diamond, who has a
I thought we saw them at the church. No,
University of Buffalo. If I had my ticket, I'd show you. Back to Sue, your final pick of the night.
Okay, so for my final pick of the night, it's another one that you'll have to bend and stretch and agree or disagree. But I went with Sting's 10 Sumner's Tales, 1993. It sounds, you could look at it as a straightforward adult contemporary, but you know, he has that jazzy, not necessarily in this album, but the reggae. He's got underlying, I don't know what you would. There's underlying things going on beneath.
Other genres are being laid underneath.
Layered.
It starts off with a regular chord that's a country chord, and then another one that starts with a reggae chord, and another one that's jazz.
It's very subtle. It's subtle, so it's not, it's not scary, I don't think, to people. Most of his songs are appealing, I think. I was gonna say something about the police, but yeah. So he makes it very easy to listen to, and I did. Let's see. 7 Days, I think, has a 5/4 beat, which also I think does that qualify for prog? Or no? We're saying the time.
That I wouldn't actually know, but the time signature is odd.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah.
That's
my
Shape of My Heart. ridiculously good track, and
Well, that's one of my favorite albums. So,
but that's St. Augustine in Hell, and that's the prog side, the progressive nature of creating a song and taking it places and creating an album of interesting things. Yes, Sting has that adult contemporary. I don't think he went out trying to design adult contemporary. I think people just of an adult nature fell in love with his style of progressive deliveries of records and songs and albums. I mean, even his next no, not the one after that, I have a hard time with because it goes into a progressive nature of like a dance integration of pop, not pop. What's it called? Well, it's dance, but it's club, and it has that
what album was that one?
um, Sacred Love. It's got all the like you're in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
like
I'm like,
that.
wow,
I
that
like it.
again, progressive, moving forward all the time, and I think that's
Mhm.
why the Police, their last record, right, Synchronicity. There's a
Mhm.
progressive rock record, right, and much different than the priors, and that was it, right. So, yeah. Good pick, good pick. Maybe it was something the boy said that made that. Mr. Young.
I'm doing the second album in 1986 from Queensryche called Rage for Order. So we had previously talked about Operation
Twice.
Mindcrime and Empire. Empire comes after Mindcrime. This comes before Mindcrime. So kind of get an idea of what it was like before they went into that. It's more progressive, I guess you'd say, than their first debut album. And this album they kind of more went with what you hear now is their layered two guitar lead approach. Lyrically, this particular album is more about social and personal and political and technology themes, kind of highlighting dangers of artificial intelligence, government intrusion, things like that. And in this album, like they actually wrote a title track called Rage for Order, but it didn't make the album. So what they did is they played parts of the music just as a kind of more like small little jam session between songs during their concert that year. But that later became part of Anarchy X on Operation Mindcrime.
Oh, okay. I wondered.
But it's a good album. I mean, I don't think I would say it's as good as Empire or Operation Mindcrime, but easily half the songs are just as good as those other two albums. It shows a little all this the best songs. If you pick like the top 5 or 6 songs off there, they're all different in their own way. Like just the delivery of Jeff Tate's vocals, whether it's the more slower, like sinister talking voice, or his high screams, or just the melodies of the band, and layered with those guitars is really good.
Nice one.
Good one. It kind of Queensryche puts themselves in that for that length of time there. Those albums, those 4 maybe, say 3 or 4, they're right in that progressive metal, right up there. Fate's Warning and what was the other one you mentioned?
Dream Theater.
Yeah, Dream Theater. Although Dream Theater it seems more symphonic, doesn't it? In some cases.
Yeah, I mean Queensryche is to me more digestible than the other two.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna take you somewhere that if I consider this one of the most unique progressive albums ever made. I consider it to be one of those that people will not even put in the category just because of what it is. And I think this has one of the greatest progressive minds ever to conduct or perform music. No longer with us. Electric guitar, bass guitar, synthesizer, Fairlight CMI, Roland, Wurlitzer, piano, programming. He's utilizing finger snapping, zills, triangle, percussion, tambourine, claps, Emu Emacs, Emu Emulator 2, as well as Simpson SDSVs, all kinds of programming information. He's got a choir.
Oh.
He's got Sheena Easton, Kim Basinger, Jack
Oh.
Nicholson, Michael Keaton. This is Prince's Batman.
Hmm.
It is one of the most ridiculously put together soundtracks of all time. If this isn't progressive, I'm eating the hat. You know, he's putting on a sound clinic, like an electrical guitar meets synth and keyboards and space oddities to bring the Joker and this psychotic cartoon, you know, tete-a-tete to life in an audio wizardry background. This town needs an enema, and he drained the music swamp expectations and filled it with everything he could muster. This is a soundtrack that has 5 releases on radio. I don't know if you can find a soundtrack by one artist that had 5 releases on it of this nature. They're bat shit crazy, you know, but they made radio, and people were obsessed with some of it, and some of it is just augmentation of repetition and wording from the movie. What is, I mean, Mavis Staples is on this record, you know, great, you know, R&B singer, and she's just doing a little vocal piece here and there. Just so you know, I mean, he was the catalyst for the voice perfection thing. What do they call it?
What, auto-tune?
Auto-tune, yeah, and which is kind of shocking in the way, but I mean, but yeah, this thing it's still magical to me. I have yet, I don't have it on CD. I still have it on tape, and I don't have a way to play it, so I'm using it in digital sense. But that's one of those albums that I would.
I remember listening to that one.
Yeah, I would think about putting in my record player from.
If you got the Blu-ray, you could probably put it in your CD player.
So, what were your albums from the progressive world of music to kick off? You know, part 2. You know, we'll have part 3 in a couple of weeks. Please be progressive and click the like button and leave a spacey comment or 2. And if you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love it if you would say yes. Obviously, we're this progressive bunch of shit. We're on the web at beyondyourradio.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, of course. Articles, video, the podcast is just a couple of days away. All about bands, albums, artists, anything we can get our hands on. Go Beyond Your Radio with us, a real music appreciation channel. Check out tomorrow's album review Saturday. We've got some doozies on there. There's no question about it. Thanks for watching, and happy listening.